What I do want to talk to David Seymour about is a new report from, oh God, save me, experts from Auckland University who have published in the New Zealand Medical Journal some research which suggests that health need and health disadvantage actually is based and can be correlated with someone's ethnicity, with someone's race. And that being Maori does mean you have more need in the health sector, which would appear to fly in the face of, I think, the new and accepted by most New Zealanders rational idea that we assign resources to people in health and elsewhere based on what their needs are. But this research says that the needs correlate to race, so we could use race as a way to disproportionately assign resources. Well, I'd like to welcome now David Seymour. David, do you accept this research as published?
Well, I accept their right to publish it. I mean, good on them. I just happen to think they're wrong. I note something that is quoted from them in a Radio New Zealand article. It says it's important to note that it's not ethnicity itself that leads to poor health. It's because racism and marginalisation are so strongly distributed along ethnic lines in New Zealand, which makes ethnicity such a strong predictor of need. And that is supposedly science. It is their assumption that New Zealanders are basically racist, and therefore we have this marginalisation as a result. They don't present any evidence for that. They also don't really understand how the government's need not race circular actually works. It starts off by saying we do not want discrimination based on a person's ethnicity, which, I would think is a fairly straightforward position. It then says, you must use the best data possible to identify people's needs, and then it says you should not automatically jump to ethnicity as the way that you allocate healthcare or any other government resource. Now, if you follow that through, we haven't said that you can't use ethnicity as a variable. We've just said that you can't use it first. You've got to go through all of the relevant statistics and not automatically discriminate by race. So if they're right, just imagine for a moment that people's ethnicity is the major factor in people's health needs, then you would still be able to use it. Our point is just that you should actually do proper data analysis and use all the other characteristics of a person before lazily and divisively jumping to race.
So very nicely, you've just said you think this is rubbish.
Well, I think that their assumptions about New Zealanders being racist are wrong, and I also think that their inability to read the circular shows that they're not quite following it. And in fairness to them, I mean, just reading the RNZ article, they do acknowledge at the bottom that you can still use ethnicity, but they're afraid that other people in the public service won't be able to read it. So it's actually one layer worse than that. They have read it, they can read it, they just think other people can't.
All right. So you're rejecting totally this expert report as published by our news media. What do you say then to those who are going to read this article from Radio New Zealand, and it's going to be published in Stuff, and I'm sure in the Herald and elsewhere, and a lot of people are going to read this, Mr. Seymour, and say, he's an evil racist, because it is all about race. Well, I'm talking about this in a wider context, in that a story like this and a report like this, and you throw in the New Zealand Medical Journal, and suddenly, someone's handed down something on a tablet from above. Do you believe people are still buying reports like this, and that it will make people reject your non-race-based approach to the health sector and other sectors of government assistance?
Sean, it makes me very sad, because this is a media that is losing the trust of the people, because the people know that a lot of what they're saying is untrue. I mean, the particular article, it was an ACT party policy to have this need not race circular. They didn't come to us and ask for comment, but they did put a picture of me in the story. So, they're doing damage to people's perception of me, I'm sure, if people believe them. They're doing damage to themselves because people increasingly don't believe them, and they're doing damage to the quality of public debate in New Zealand. So, right across the board, they are doing harm to our country, our society, call it what you will. They're making it for people to solve problems. And right now we've got a lot of problems, so it is very disappointing.
Look, as I mentioned in the intro, and I didn't brief you on this because I only got into it last night, there's another group or another organisation that seemingly didn't get the memo. That is Creative New Zealand, who continue to fund Tusiata Avia, the controversial poet who has published and performed on the government's dime dramatic works and published poetry which encourages young women to take machetes and stab white men. In fact, to roam the streets of a city looking for white men to kill. Of course, under the previous government, that was art, and it was completely acceptable. And because it was a brown woman saying it, where is ACT on that? And I note that there is a backlash now coming from the state-funded artistic community and various groups that are funded by government-controlled charities or government-controlled trusts. Is Tusiata Avia, to your mind, an acceptable recipient of government arts funding?
Well, I don't think so, no. I mean, I get that I'm no, art connoisseur, but I just think it doesn't really help to be writing poems about, going around stabbing people with pig knives. And, maybe people think that there's some artistic release or expression in it, but I'm not seeing it. And I think in a lot of cases, there'd be a major backlash from the usual suspects in media. But again, our country seems to have got to a stage where your background matters more than what you're actually doing. And I don't think that if somebody who was, say, a white guy said the same thing, they'd be treated the same. I think it'd be all terrible, and there'd be outcries. Whereas you've got people who will take exactly the same activity in the hands of a person with a different background, and they think it's somehow something to celebrate. Very, very strange.